Good evening. Very hard work. Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta. Merry Christmas to everyone. So glad you're here on this very special Christmas Eve Lessons and Carols service. We will begin singing, "O Come All Ye Faithful." While the theology of Unitarian Universalism has changed over the years, we revisit these old songs with their old, beautiful lyrics and sing the words we mostly know. I did change words in one of them, but we'll get that later. Please rise in body or in spirit. Let us sing together, "O Come All Ye Faithful." O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. O come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Adestet fideles, leti triumphantes, venite, venite in Bethlehem. Natum videte, regem angelorum, venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus, Dominum. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Oh, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. As you're seated, if you could scooch to the middle of the rows, because we do know more folks will be coming in. So, more the merrier.
On this Christmas Eve, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta, where we're building a beloved community that changes lives. Wherever you come from and whoever you love, you are welcome here. I'm Tony Stringer, a lay minister at UUCA, and tonight we celebrate the holiday season with rituals of song and story and candlelight. It's good to be together to deepen into the spiritual meanings of this time, of glad tidings, possibilities, and peace. Join us on Sunday, December 29th, and experience UCA's annual Labyrinth Walk. Drop in around 9:30 a.m. and you will see our labyrinth cover the social hall floor. While you're waiting your turn to walk the labyrinth, check out the different stations that we'll have set up in the building. Lay ministers will lead the Sunday service at 11 a.m. that day, so please join us for worship after you've walked the labyrinth. And now, please take this moment to put all cell phones on vibrate or silence them completely. As we say, put them in their most reverent position. I invite you to open your hearts and to enter fully into the spirit and mystery of this holiday season. Once again, welcome.
On December 5 and 20, boom, boom, boom. On December 5 and 20, boom, boom, boom. For the love of us is given the Holy Infant Son of Heaven, of the Virgin Joseph's bride, to all the earth good will be tidings, boom, boom, boom. Little birds fly from the forest, boom, boom, boom. Little birds fly from the forest, boom, boom, boom. All your flashlings leave behind and seek the infant Savior kind. Come and build a downy nest to warm the lovely baby blessed, boom, boom, boom. Tiny stars up in the heavens, boom, boom, boom. Tiny stars up in the heavens, boom, boom, boom. If you see the baby cry, oh, do not answer with a sigh. Rather lighten up the sky with heaven's beams of radiant brightness, boom, boom, boom.
Our first reading from Edward Erickson. We stand with eyes towards the east, awaiting the rising of the star, and pray that love shall become flesh and dwell among us, and that compassion shall be born in human hearts. We celebrate the discovery of fact in the garment of legend. Let every cradle be visited by three good kings of faith, hope, and love. Then Christmas is with us always, and every birth among us is the birth of God, and every child is the Christ child, and every song is the song of angels. To celebrate Christmas is to say yes to the power of love to remake humankind. May we be renewed in the love which can save the world. I will now light our Unitarian Universalist chalice flame, the flame representing spirit, the chalice that holds it representing community, while Don lights our menorah for the third night of Hanukkah. The light of our chalice flame also represents the warmth of community. So in the spirit of hospitality and welcome, won't you please turn to someone sitting near you and welcome them into this holy space with a handshake or a hug. This is surely a night for storytelling. I'm Reverend Taryn Strauss. I welcome you here as well. And tonight's first story is my own, from my own life. It's called Santa Claus and Me. Whether our Christmas memories are fond or troubled, we access them through the five senses. I remember the sound of my family singing Christmas carols as we would drive each Christmas Eve from our house in Oak Park, Illinois, over to my grandparents' house on Chicago's North Side. I looked forward to this car ride each year, the way we would show off our voices to each other and seamlessly go from one carol to the next, remembering all the same words and forgetting all the same words together, my 3 siblings, my parents, and I. I remember the feeling of bitter winter on my skin, my nose and fingers, icy railings, and wet snow piled high on either side of the sidewalks. I remember the smell of my grandparents' house, pipe smoke, tobacco, Old Spice, and furniture they had from the 1950s. I remember the tastes of those Christmas Eve nights, the sweet pickles and canned black olives on my grandma's table, sneaking more than my share throughout the night. But this is a story of sight. It was something and someone I saw with my own eyes. We arrived very late each year to my grandparents' house. On Christmas Eve, we would arrive, enter the door, hug each other, and then just wait around for my grandpa to return from the club where he was often playing with his band. My grandpa was a rock and roll musician, and he had a standing gig each Christmas Eve. We had to wait for hours before we could even begin to scale Christmas Present Mountain, a precious sight at the foot of the tree, a sight of abundance amidst a family story of scarcity. We amused ourselves in these hours by watching Miracle on 34th Street, It's a Wonderful Life, avoiding my grandpa's mean German Shepherd, nibbling on ham, Waldorf, and Jell-O mold salad, which I believe was affectionately called pink stuff. There were a lot of siblings and cousins, and by the time my grandpa finally appeared, he breathed new life into the crowded Christmas scene, often around 11 p.m. And then we had to wait until each person opened their gift, all of us watching them one at a time. Often it was something practical like lotion or very small toy, videos, tapes, or books. You remember tapes? My grandpa was typically in a fabulous mood on Christmas Eve. It was the happiest he was all year, playing good jazz on the record player, smoking his pipe, and looking upon all of us with a satisfied gaze from his recliner. He believed in Christmas magic, in the promise Santa Claus made to all children for one night only to relax the rules, to be generous instead of withholding. There he was, my grandpa, I'd always thought so serious, encouraging us to playfully set out the cookies and milk. My grandpa set the tone for whatever space he occupied, and Christmas was a festively curated experience. To be a child in his presence on other days of the year was often to feel a little insecure, a little silenced, and even harshly critiqued at times, but not on Christmas. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, it was a full moon or something close to it, I saw my sisters and my older cousins, after all the presents had been opened, I saw them gathered with my grandpa at the front window. I was playing with one of my Grammy's bells. She had this huge collection of little bells, listening to the delicate tinkle, feeling warmed by Christmas excitement. And I heard from across the room my sisters and older cousins all gasp and whisper as my grandpa pointed out the window up into the sky. "There he is," they all said. There he goes. I walked tentatively toward the window and looked up. There was something. There was something up there, just a flash in the distance, something tiny, red, sparkling almost. I blinked, and it was gone. I heard from somewhere the soft tinkle of bells, and my sisters and older cousins were all exclaiming breathlessly, "We saw him. We saw Santa." I looked at them quizzically, and my aunts and uncles confirmed for us, "Yes, you did. Santa was up there, just like Grandpa used to show us when we were little." At that point, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning. We were all punchy with sugar and presents, and I looked for my uncertainty to be reflected in someone else's eyes, but they were all very, very clear. We collectively had seen Santa and his sleigh shooting across the sky. The next morning, we ran out to find large footprints in the snow and 16 hoof prints, and 2 lines behind them that were definitely sleigh tracks in the front yard. I wondered, all these years later, had this all been a dream or was it a real memory? And so I called my older sister to confirm. Don was there for this phone call, so he can confirm that this happened. My sister's name is Condra. Condra, I said, did we really see Santa at Grandma and Grandpa's house? Yes, she said. What do you mean? I asked, age 40. We saw Santa up high in the sky in his sleigh, she replied. Come on, I said. My sister calmly replied, I don't know what else to tell you, Taryn. We saw Santa. We were all there. I remember one night each year, a big, serious, hard-working, often bickering, often struggling family gathered, and they made magic happen for each other. Ask anyone who was there. We all saw Santa that night with our own eyes.
So let's sing a song about Santa, huh? Please rise in body or in spirit. We're going to sing Up on the Housetop. I did change a few lyrics to make all the toys gender neutral, but you know.
Up on the housetop, reindeer paws, out jumps good old Santa Claus, down through the chimney with lots of toys, all for the little ones' Christmas joys. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. First comes the stocking of little Nell, oh dear Santa, fill it well. Give them a dog and it laughs and cries, one that will open and shut their eyes. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick. Next comes the stocking of little Blair, oh just see what a glorious flare. Here is a hammer and lots of tacks, also a ball and a whip that cracks. Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on the housetop, click, 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 down through the chimney with good Saint Nick.
So this is Christmas, and what have you done? Another year over, and a new one's just begun. And so happy Christmas. I hope you had fun. The near and the dear ones, the old and the young.
A very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear.
So this is Christmas, for weak and for strong, for rich and the poor ones. This world is so wrong. So happy Christmas, for black and for white, for yellow and red ones. Let's stop all fight.
A Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear.
So this is Christmas, and what have we done? Another year over, and a new one's just begun. So happy Christmas. Hope you had fun. The near and the dear ones, the old and the young.
A very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a good one without any fear. War is over if you want it. War is over now.
This reading, The Christmas Truce, is by Naina Bejakal. On a crisp, clear morning over 100 years ago, thousands of British, Belgian, and French soldiers put down their rifles, stepped out of their trenches, and spent Christmas mingling with their German enemies along the Western Front. In the 100 years since, the event has been seen as a kind of miracle, a rare moment of peace just a few months into a war that would eventually claim over 15 million lives. Pope Benedict XV, who took office that September, had originally called for a Christmas truce, an idea that was officially rejected. Yet it seems the sheer misery of daily life in the cold, wet, dull trenches was enough to motivate troops to initiate the truce on their own, which means that it's hard to pin down exactly what happened. A huge range of differing oral accounts, diary entries, and letters home from those who took part make it virtually impossible to speak of a typical Christmas truce as it took place across the Western Front. To this day, historians continue to disagree over the specifics. No one knows where it began or how it spread, or if, by some curious festive magic, it broke out simultaneously across the trenches. Nevertheless, some 2/3 of troops, about 100,000 people, are believed to have participated in the legendary truce. Most accounts suggest the truce began with carol singings from the trenches on Christmas Eve. Graham Williams of the 5th London Rifle Brigade described it in even greater detail. First, the Germans would sing one of their carols, and then we would sing one of ours, until when we started up, "O come, all ye faithful," the Germans immediately joined in singing the same hymn to the Latin words, Adeste Fidelis. And I thought, well, this is really a most extraordinary thing. Two nations, both singing the same carol in the middle of a war. The next morning, in some places, German soldiers emerged from their trenches calling out, "Merry Christmas," in English. Allied soldiers came out warily to greet them. In others, Germans held up signs reading, "You no shoot, we no shoot." Over the course of the day, troops exchanged gifts of cigarettes, food, buttons, and hats. The Christmas truce also allowed both sides to finally bury their dead comrades, whose bodies had lain for weeks on no man's land, the ground between opposing trenches. The truce was widespread but not universal, and of course, it was only ever a truce, not peace. Hostilities returned, in some places later that day, and in others, not until after New Year's Day. I remember the silence, the eerie sound of silence, one veteran from the 5th Battalion later recalled to the Observer. It was a short peace in a terrible war. Yet for many at the time, the story of the Christmas truce was not an example of chivalry in the depths of war, but rather a tale of subversion. When the men on the ground decided they were not fighting the same war as their superiors. Indeed, one British soldier, Murdoch M. Wood, speaking in 1930, said, "I then came to the conclusion that I have held very firmly ever since, that if we had been left to ourselves, there would never have been another shot fired." Still, a century later, the truce has been remembered as a testament to the power of hope and humanity. Here ends the reading.
Let us join together in singing the first Noel. Please rise, in body or in spirit. The first Noel, the angels did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, Noel, Noel.
Charles Dickens' classic tale, A Christmas Carol, we encounter the nephew of Ebenezer Scrooge, Fred, who says, "But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come around, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when people seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys." Well, we are fellow passengers to the grave. Sometimes we are the wise people led by the star, and sometimes we are the refugee family who just had a baby, and we see holiness in that new life, yet we are completely vulnerable and afraid, and our need is overwhelming. Sometimes we are the one, and sometimes we are the other, but always fellow passengers. The offering tonight will benefit the Ministers' Benevolence Fund, which is administered in confidence for emergency assistance for our fellow passengers in life in this community. At this time of year, the need can be especially great. Please give generously. The offering will now be given and most gratefully received.
My name is Francis Tolliver. I come from Liverpool. 2 years ago, the war was waiting for me after school. To Belgium and to Flanders, to Germany to here. I fought for king and country I loved dear. There's Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France were still, no Christmas song was sung. Our families back in England were toasting us that day. The brave and glorious lads so far away. I was lying with my messmate on the cold and rocky ground when o'er the field of battle came a most peculiar sound. He says, "I now listen up, me boys," each soldier strained to hear, as one young German voice rang out so clear. "He's singing bloody well, you know," my partner says to me. Then one by one each German voice joined in harmony. The cannons rested silent, the gas clouds rolled no more, as Christmas brought us respite from the war. As soon as they were finished and a reverent pause was spent, "God rest ye merry gentlemen," struck up some lads from Ghent. The next they sang was "Stille Nacht, 'tis silent night," says I, and in two tongues one voice filled up the sky. "There's someone coming towards us," the frontline sentry cried. All sights were fixed on one lone figure trudging from their side. His truce flag like a Christmas star shone on that plain so bright, as he bravely strode unarmed into the night. And one by one on either side walked into no man's land. With neither gun nor bayonet, we met there hand in hand. We shared some secret brandy and we wished each other well. And in a flare-lit soccer match, we gave 'em hell. We traded chocolates cigarettes, and photographs from home. These sons and fathers far away from families of their own. Young Sanders played the squeeze box, and they had a violin. These curious and unlikely band of men. Then daylight stole upon us, and France was France once more. With sad farewells we each prepared to settle back to war. But the question haunted every heart that lived that wondrous night: whose family have I fixed within my sights? 'Twas Christmas in the trenches where the frost so bitter hung. The frozen fields of France were warmed, songs of peace were sung. For the walls they'd built between us to exact their work of war were crumbled and were gone forevermore. My name is Francis Tolliver. In Liverpool I dwell. Each Christmas come since World War I, I've learned its lessons well. But the ones who call the shots won't be among the dead and lame. And on each end of the rifle, we're the same.
It's a little bit of a family affair tonight. Thanks, James. So for the chance to tell old stories of peace at Christmas time, to share old memories of magic created by our families, for all of these gifts, we are so grateful to have a place to come, sing the old songs, and remember Christmases past from our own lives, and to plan together a new future. Blessings on this offering. May it go far and wide to spread peace, comfort, and hope to more people in our community who need it. Blessings on this gift. And now I think we will dedicate the offering. I think we do have a slide. Yay. So please join me in the dedication of the offering to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community. We dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Our next reading is by Max Lucado, Christmas Immigrants. The moonlight was their only light. Huffing and puffing were the only sounds. Jose walked in front, Maria behind. The trail was narrow. He didn't want his wife to stumble. Bye. She carried the baby. He had offered to do so, but she refused. He's asleep, she explained. Let him sleep. He agreed. So they hurried, Jose in the lead, all their earthly possessions crammed into the backpack he had purchased from the street vendor in San Salvador. That was weeks ago. How many trains had there been since then? How many miles? How many cold nights? He glanced over his shoulder. Her eyes caught his. Was that a smile he saw? She is something, this woman, he said to himself. He turned his attention back to the trail. Behind them was a village. Within the village was a barn. Within that barn lay, even still, the gathered straw and abandoned feed trough that had served as a bassinet for their baby. The child whimpered. After a dozen steps, they heard the shots. Jose had been warned of the danger. Take the baby and leave, they had urged him. These people are violent. He'd hurried back to the barn to tell Maria, but she was sound asleep. He decided to let her rest. When she awoke at noon, her face was pale. She nursed the child and dozed again. Jose kept an eye toward the door. An old cowboy knew they were using his barn for shelter. He brought them coffee and beans and a blanket for the child. Do you know about the gangs? He asked Jose. Maria overheard and sat up from her pallet. You must go now, the cowboy told them. But Jose wanted to wait. Just another day or two, till you find your strength, he told Maria, though he knew she had enough strength for them both. Nothing fazed her. This sudden journey, this barnyard birth, she was the strong one. He stretched out and closed his eyes. As he did, a messenger came to him in a dream. This messenger was tall and light-filled. The same messenger who had spoken to him in a dream 9 months earlier, when spring was in the air and a wedding in the plans. But then came Maria's mysterious pregnancy. Had it not been for this midnight visitor, Jose might have left her. Tonight, the messenger came again to Jose in his dream. The boy is in danger. It is time to go. Jose sat up with a start. He knew he had no choice. He shook Maria awake. Get your things. Without a word, she stood. She grabbed their few possessions and stuffed them into the backpack. Jose lifted the lid of an old toolbox and took out the gifts. Strangers had brought them. They had traveled far to see his son, his baby. Now Jose would travel as far as necessary to protect him. Their kindness would fund the journey. He placed the gifts into the pack and looked across the barn. Maria was leaning over their son. Shh, shh, she assured and lifted him. Within moments, the three were out the door and scurrying down the narrow street. Time was short. Safety was within miles, if only they could reach it. The riverbed they were walking emptied out onto a single-lane road. They saw approaching headlights. Jose waved. A pickup pulled to a stop. Jose motioned to the truck bed and the driver nodded. The young family climbed into the back and squeezed together. At one point, the baby cried. Maria gave him milk. Jose looked up at the Mexican sky. Stars sparkled like diamonds. For a moment, just a moment, he wasn't running. He was resting, imagining a home of their own someday. Maria dozed. A pothole bumped the truck and she woke. They rode wordlessly for about an hour. The black sky gave way to gray, then gold. At the first daylight, the truck came to a stop on the side of the road. This is as far as I can take you. What you seek is over the next hill. Maria's face was chalked with road dust. The eyes of his son were open, looking at the sky, then at his mother. The three set out on the final segment of their journey, their escape. One weary step after another carried them to the top of the hill. When they reached the crest, they stopped and stared. The river below was lined with tents, campfires, and people. Jose reached for the newborn. I will carry him the rest of the way. Maria gazed at the refugees. Will we be safe, Jose? He looked at her for several moments before answering. The rising sun cast her face in orange. Si Dios quiere, mi amor. Yes, she agreed, if God wills. The family turned and began to walk to the border.
I have tried.
And now we turn towards our candle lighting ritual. Let the following prayerful words prepare our hearts and set our intentions. The bearers of the light have many names. They've come again and again to the children of earth, reminding all who hear of the great truth that greater than hate is love, and greater than fear is faith, and greater than despair is hope. Tonight, when our world is dark, when the days are short and the sun is dim, and the nights seem never to end, in this world where hatred and fear, suspicion and violence, greed and malice still shadow human existence, we come together, as is our custom, to sing the old songs and recount the old tales which speak of the birth of the light bearer, of a holy child born at the midnight of the year, who is every child. A holy child who over the millennia has symbolized all those women and men of whatever age and tradition who've come into the world bearing light in the shadows. We gather here at the midnight of the year to give thanks to the light. We come seeking to make the light of love and hope and joy burn in our lives, that the world may be brighter by our living in it.
For many decades, the holidays, we've passed a flame around, and here it's against fire code. So, but the ritual is still very beautiful. We pass the light from our chalice through the room. So we will come to you and pass our light. It's right on the bottom, and we'll take it from here and give it to each other. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep
hear these words from the ancient Gospel of Luke. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that, while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round and about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, good will to all.
Let us rise together in body or in spirit and conclude our service singing Joy to the World. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let hearts their songs employ, while the fields and the floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
Please remain standing if you are, and join hands for the benediction. As we go out into Christmas Eve and the rest of this holiday season, take with you these words from the great theologian, Reverend Howard Thurman. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among people, to make music in the heart, So may it be. Go in peace. Merry Christmas.